Welcome to Notice Tonight, the show that decodes the region. I am Wasbir Hussain. One fine morning, we get reports that the river Siang, as the Brahmaputra is called in Arunachal Pradesh, has gone dry. Then a few years later, we get to know that the Siang waters have become not just turbid, but totally muddy. And then comes reports about high tides on the Siang, which usually flows in a calm manner. And then the river is in spate. This unusual behavior of the Siang is attributed to several possible reasons. Why is the river muddy for so many months now? Is it caused by massive art excavations on the Chinese side as part of Beijing's plan to divert the Yarlung Changpo to the arid Xinjiang province? Why is New Delhi not able to provide a clear explanation to the anxious people in Arunachal Pradesh, or for that matter the Northeast? Shouldn't the union government demonstrate some urgency on the matter? Is the river issue really high on the agenda in the continuing Sino-Indian dialogue? To discuss the issue, I am joined from New Delhi by Dr. Swaran Singh, professor at the School of International Studies at the Jawaharlal Nehru University, one of India's best-known experts on China. Also in New Delhi, I have Mr. Jayadev Ranade, President, Center for China Analysis and Strategy, a former additional secretary at the Cabinet Secretariat. I am also joined by Mr. Ninong Ering, Lok Sabha MP from Arunachal Pradesh. In Noida, I have Professor Nayan Sharma from IIT Roorkee, who is one of the country's top hydrologists. And at our studios in Guwahati, I have Professor Arup Kumar Sharma of IIT Guwahati, who is also a member of the National Disaster Management Authority Advisory Committee, and Dr. Nani Gopal Mahanta, professor at Guwahati University and head of the university's Center for Southeast Asian Studies. Gentlemen, welcome to the program. First, I would like to go, before I take to other panelists, Mr. Ninong Ering, being the MP from the state of Arunachal Pradesh, where the action is at this point in time, Mr. Ninong Ering, do you suspect something really big going on in the Chinese side, like a major art excavation work to divert the Yarlung Changpo? And could this be one of the reasons for the Siang remaining muddy and experiencing high tides? Mr. Ering.
Yes, I'm very grateful that because you were one of the first channels whom I spoke to last year in the month of September, October. So this channel covered the issue first, and it was taken even in a national level. This, your reporters and all, they reported very well. It was covered very well. And it was even taken up to the Prime Ministers and even to Mr. Meghwal, the Honorable Water Resource Minister's level. When I spoke to Mr. Meghwalji, he said that we are asking the technical experts, that we are sending teams to China and we are speaking to them. So I thought that that was the end of the issue. But now I had reported that tunnel was being diverted into China through the Sangpo. But he said that no, we have already confirmed that there was a massive earthquake, and that is the reason why this black soil is coming. Now, to be very frank, we had an earthquake in 2000 also, and there was there was a dam, a natural dam was formed, and after the after that dam was eroded, it came in a big flood and a lot of property and lives also were lost.
Right.
But this time I have seen that the water did not increase, but the soil, the deposit of that cement-like soil has been made throughout the Siang River, down right up to, even you could feel it, you could see it in Dhemaji and in Dibrugarh also.
Okay.
Now what has happened is that, and I had reported that the depth of the water, suppose in some places it was at 15 meters, sometimes it was 15 feet. Now those depth of the water has just reached 5 feet. So that time I had objected that this deposit is not from the topsoil. These deposits are from the inner core of the mountains or hills, where, you know, a kind of lava structure or kind of, you know, very cement-like mud is coming. So that is the reason I had objected, no, something is going on which the Indian government has to see.
Right. You know, if you have heard the MP, Mr. Ninong Ering, Professor Swaran Singh, is it a case of more than what meets the eye? You know, the Siang River continuing to be muddy, leading to speculations that there must be massive activity on the Chinese side, construction activities, whether it is diverting the Brahmaputra itself.
Yes, because I had even just recently wrote, even by my
not
tweets,
Mr. Ering, this question was, Mr. Ering, hold on, this question was to Professor Swaran Singh. Professor Swaran Singh, if you have heard Mr. Ninong Ering, you know, Professor, you know, do you think it is a case of more than what meets the eye, the river continuing to be muddy and so on?
I was saying I want to begin by complimenting you, Basveer. You brought that issue very strongly in last November, and hopefully this time again the national media should pick up this issue seriously. There are several questions invariably when something of this nature happens, and I fully agree with the Member of Parliament. There are several questions because there are drought in some areas, there is the flood in some areas, there is water with this silt, like, as he said, lava-like, cement-like soot in it. So fundamentally, enormous confusion. And all we can do is speculate as to whether, like last year, China said it's kind of a you know, sort of cloudburst and earthquakes leading to some natural slides. And, you know, people say that Himalayas are fragile and on this side. So we continue to live in a speculation life. I think we need to have a better information. Last year, China refused to give information even on hydrological data. What we need is greater trust on each other, confidence on each other. We should actually ask for topographical data mapping of the whole region so that we can identify and monitor what are the areas where such landslide-driven dams could happen and break, which suddenly leads to uncontrolled, you know, flush of water. This time at least Chinese mentioned that this is going to happen, but as your Member of Parliament says, it's not a usual flood. It's kind of a, you know, strange kind of silt coming, and that greatly impacts the flora, fauna, and the fishery.
Yeah.
It also impacts the carrying capacity of rivers. So it's enormous impact that the whole region has, because water system is the lifeline of entire Northeast, and of course Bangladesh. So I think greater trust, greater rigorous sharing of ideas and information with China is very important.
Absolutely.
And I think New Delhi should take this issue more seriously.
I will come back to you, Professor Swaran Singh, on the big task ahead for New Delhi in the days ahead, and what and how can we extract information from the Chinese? Can we have this information on our own? With these questions, I'll come back to you very soon. But let me go quickly to Mr. Jaydev Ranade, well-known China expert. Mr. Ranade, what's going on? You know, one day, as I said, the Siang goes dry, and after a couple of months, couple of years, you know, never before high tide is witnessed on the river. What do you think, Mr. Ranade?
Well, there are two things which I would like to mention here. First is that a similar thing of very heavy rainfalls are being noticed in the Ladakh region, and people who are studying the climate attribute it to climate change and global warming. I think the same thing is happening here. There's been very heavy rainfall in China and very heavy rainfall in these parts. So that could be one reason. The second could be the construction work that is going on just across the borders, across Arunachal, in the area particularly of Maydok in the Ningxia prefecture, where a railway construction program is afoot to link the railway from Sichuan to Lhasa. So I think both these things have contributed to the present situation.
Okay, both these things, the construction activity at the end of the day contributing to the present situation. I'll come to my panelist in the studio, but very quickly, Nayan Sharma, Dr. Nayan Sharma, professor at IIT Roorkee, one of India's best known hydrologists. Some scientific questions for you, Professor Nayan Sharma. Why do you think is the river Siang experiencing so much tides and continuing to be muddy? Why is it? Are you of the belief that it is the earthquake or it is something else?
Well, it's a very complex question. I'll try to share with you some of the work which has been done by us, something done in China also.
Yeah.
To go to the root of the whole problem, I will try to refer the work done by Dr. Wang and his team, a Chinese team. They try to understand the formation of Yarlung Sangpo, especially close to Yarlung Sangpo Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
So what they found out is very interesting, because earlier people believed is the river incision is responsible for carving out this deepest and largest canyon in the world, or is there tectonic uplift? Before I go into it, I would like to share with you that Yarlung Sangpo Grand Canyon is about 500 kilometers long, and it is some places as deep as 7 kilometers, and on an average 5 kilometers. And what happened that there was a massive earthquake, I will not call it massive, but quite big earthquake and such a height. This earthquake was 6.4 on the Richter scale. It occurred in 17 November last year.
Yeah.
Now, that earthquake has obviously dislodged a lot of material from the high mountains.
Okay.
And then it created 3 lakes, which is now pretty well known. Now, coming back to the work done by the Chinese geologists, I'd like to highlight that they started getting data, or they went to the site and they found something very revealing. What they found out that about 2.5 million years ago, another big canyon used to exist just upstream of this Yarlung Sangpo Grand Canyon, which is between Gyalaperi and Namche Barwa. And in that earlier canyon, which was there upstream of this, got buried in about 500 to 600 meters of sand. Yeah, that brings out a very revealing point. I would like to focus on it.
Yeah.
The basic issue is it river erosion or is it tectonic
That is the
uplift?
question. Is it
so
river
the
erosion?
main finding of this Chinese study, reported in 2014 as far as back, that it is not really not river erosion but
Dr. Nayan
tectonic
Sharma,
uplift.
Hold on.
Tectonic uplift is.
Yes. Hold on to your thoughts. I will ask your fellow IITian Dr. Arup Sharma, but before that, very quickly, Dr. Nanigopal Mohanto, is it as simple as an earthquake or some construction activities going on, or is it a case of the worst fears coming true, like the Chinese engaged in art excavations to actually divert the Yarlung Sangpo to feed water to its arid northern areas, particularly the Taklamakan Desert in the Xinjiang province?
Well, Ziri, just give me 1 minute to make my point. Well, there are these 2 issues, whether it is technology induced or whether it is nature induced, disaster, whatever you call it. Well, we have no access to this, with the crux of the argument, with the source of it. So we have no idea. Actually, it is precisely because China maintains a profound secrecy over its hydrological issues.
Yeah.
So we have no access to those data, and sometimes they provide, sometimes they do not. Although India is asking for October 15 up till they want data from China, but China has sometimes provide. But at the same time, they give the same hydrological data to Bangladesh, but not to India. So that's my point is. My point, I have 3-4 points to make. Number 1, water can no longer be seen as just a product of natural resource. It has become an extension of foreign policy. It has become a part of security and power.
Yes, no, Dr. Nandagopal, very well said, but we'll come to all that. But do you think very quickly, is it just the earthquake, or is it we cannot rule out some other massive construction activities or diversion activities going on?
That is why, if you talk about when it is related to security in the sense that, there could be earthquake, there could be technology in this, or it could be because of there's, in the Great Ban, China is projecting they are going to construct huge mega dams because they have already constructed.
So nothing can be ruled out. We need information. That is the point.
And China is not signatory to the international convention.
We will come to all that. We will come to all that, but we cannot take things lightly.
It is precisely because of China's
cannot
secrecy.
Take things lightly and Chinese secrecy. India has to get more information. Professor Arup Sharma, what do you think? What are your opening remarks? How are you looking at this issue?
As almost all of our members are saying, that it is a complex problem, and there can be several, points on that. Massive construction activities is definitely going on the Chinese side, basically on the Tibetan side.
Yeah.
And from that, just in our place also, if there is a constructional activities, then a lot of sediments come from that side. So that can induce some amount of sediment. But on that portion, the Siang, which is not that narrow that we generally imagine, suppose near the Namsa Baura area or the gorge, that Siang is very narrow.
Yeah.
But then in that portion, it is quite wide also, just in that portion. And that way, that is also a braided portion because it is in a plateau. So it is a braided portion there itself. And a lot of sediment get deposited there. But the finer sediment come down to our Indian side, and distance is also from our Indian border.
Yeah.
The distance to that portion, or where mainly the constructional activities is going on, to that will be around, say, 600 kilometer or so, 500 to 600 kilometer.
Yes.
Now, that last year, when in 17 November, or in the November around that, when this was happening, it was in a lean period, and the finer sediment always get deposited on the river on the top portion. Now, in that portion, if a heavy rain comes, then the sediment or turbidity can switch up. And so this can be one reason. Why the turbidity got switched up. This is one. And in the recent case, what it is happening, that when I just got the information that on 29th from the NDMA, I got one information that river Changpo is rising and China is sending that information.
Yeah. They shared that information, which is also quite rare.
Yes.
Which is also quite rare. The Chinese side let out a statement saying that they have been experiencing unusually heavy rain, so there's huge discharge into the Changpo River, and that is the information that was shared. I'll come back to you, Dr. Arup Sharma. But Professor Swaran Singh, why is this discourse? Why we don't see a discourse on the river issue, whether it is the national media, whether it is the national think tanks, whether it is the academia at the national level. And government, of course, does hardly says anything, our government, hardly says anything on the water issue. But this is quite a critical issue. It can have a disastrous impact in the northeast of India and elsewhere.
See, with due respect to you as an anchor, you are quite aware of what our television channels are focusing on these days. Several of the critical issues are never on the screen very often. I'm sure this is one of the important issues that need to be addressed. I remember off and on for about 2-3 years, there is talk about China diverting water of Brahmaputra or Yarlung Sampo to Xinjiang with a 1,000-kilometer tunnel. I want to clarify, I think if that kind of mega project happens, satellites are going to pick up that very quickly, so that's not happening on the ground as of now. But it is also true that if any nation has done water diversions of the mega scale, it is the Chinese, so they potentially can do it. I think at this stage, what is important is both mutual confidence, so that we are not having panic responses in India. And second is more and more information sharing of notes, so that whenever such sudden release of water or silt in the water or drought has to happen, India has ways to respond to it. I understand there is a panelist from the Disaster Management Authority of India. that authority can respond to such situations only if it has enough data given to it on regular basis, not just hydrological the data, but also, as I said, of topographic data in terms of mapping where are potential threats that can create landslides, can create those artificial dams, and then there could be breach on those dams. How to respond to these, and imagine so many villages and towns in northeast are around Brahmaputra, and I think every year dozens of villages are getting wiped out, people are getting uncomfortable, and that's an, in fact, national problem. You look at various regions of the country, about 40 million hectares of India every year faces flood and vulnerable to floods. 70 lakh hectares suffers floods every year. 1,600 people on average die every year between June and September. So it's not just northeast, it's a bigger problem, and I think we need to respond to it. For example, dams are very often seen only as electricity producing projects.
Yes, Professor Suren Singh, does it, I mean, are you also suggesting in that way that, we should bring this water issue high up on the agenda in the Sino-Indian bilateral dialogue process? Isn't it? We are now bogged down with the border issue and trade and business.
I think so.
But water, where is it?
Water is extremely critical resource. For about a decade, people have been writing books on water wars in Asia in future, where Tibet is at the center of that source. And China has to generate confidence with the neighboring countries. Millions of people depend on those rivers that flow out of Tibet.
Yeah.
And I think this is important for India to, as we are saying, we are improving relations with China, press on getting more information on regular basis.
Press on getting more information.
Prepare to how to deal with these natural disasters.
True. What Professor Arup Kumar Sharma, I'll come to you, Nanugopal Mohanto. Professor Suren Singh very rightly said that we have to press the Chinese to get more information to us. But what about scientific studies on the Indian side? That is just not happening, at least in this sector.
No, it is not that we are not doing anything. I mean, we have developed a complete model of the Brahmaputra basin or Brahmaputra river. And that also we are interacting with the Chinese part.
Have you studied the source?
Yes. That is what we are saying, that we have already developed the model, and in that we are also collaborating with the Chinese university, Yunnan University there.
Okay.
And then they are sharing some of the information which can be shared, like that precipitation. So we got some precipitation data from their side apart from the global data. There are some global data available, but we got some those data. And from that also we are analyzing how, and our basic objective is that if we can develop that things properly, then we can understand that how much flow is coming, how much sediment is coming, and then we can take management measures.
But we have to have a continuous effort at studying the river, the data collection, and this is not an easy task. Nanugopal Mohanto, I'll have to go for a break, but very quickly, as you very rightly said, water is a security issue. The water has already been securitized, and it is definitely can be used as a military weapon, isn't it?
Yes, certainly. On top of that, if you look at, as Professor Suren Singh has said, actually it is about also China's totalizing the control over Tibet. If you look at Tibet, is now the source of more than 10 important rivers of the world.
It's the water tower of the
whole world. So therefore, it is not just a kind of technology issue or its demand for eastern provinces and western provinces. So it totalizes its control over Tibet, number one. Number two, it's also an extension of Oborency Pact. You cannot detach the question of water politics, the water as a weapon, vis-a-vis the OPEC and CPS. For example, on the eve of Doklam crisis, on even when India is talking about scrapping the Indus Water Treaty, at that point of time, China went to the extent of disrupting the water flow of one of the tributary of Sarlang Yangpo. So therefore, there is a very, symmetric relationship between the political dimension, strategic dimension, and the water as a weapon. We cannot detach these issues from China's.
We have to discuss these issues as well. We cannot detach, as Nanugopal Mohanto said. I'll go for a short break, but don't go. I'll be right back. When I come back, I'll go directly to Professor Suren Singh, Jaydev Ranade, Nayan Sharma, and of course, our panelist as well as the MP, Mr. Ninong Ering. Welcome back. Mr. Ninong Ering, you know, now the union government does not seem to be in a hurry to provide a clear explanation to the people in Arunachal Pradesh or the Northeast for that matter on what's going on, why the turbidity or why the high tides. What do you think? No urgency.
Yes, because I had even just recently wrote, even by my tweets, I had sent to Madam Nirmala Sitharaman, I even tweeted to our Honorable Prime Minister, Water Resource Minister, and also to the NDRF. And I got a very quick response from the NDRF, and they said they just were doing. Just recently, in my constituency, that is in 37 West Pasighat constituency, there, you know, some cowherds were marooned. And we had to write to the Prime Minister and also to the Defence Minister that a requisition of the Air Force must be, Air Force chopper must be made, and we could somehow, you know, evacuate those persons. But I'm very grateful to the Defence Ministry and also to the, especially to the Air Command in Mohanbari, who could, in Chabua, who could send, you know, choppers immediately and lift those persons. But what I'm saying that yes, the government of India is not taking it very seriously in the issue of the construction of the tunnel by the Chinese government. They have completed, because we don't have any water treaty. Very unfortunate, China and India does not have an international water treaty. So you are convinced that the construction of the tunnel has been done? And that is the reason that they do not, you know, give very much importance to the downstream. But the thing is that they have agreed that they will share the you know, water level, or if there is any kind of, you know, no, that is not it.
Right. You know, Professor Nayan Sharma, you know, there is a feeling that, you know, there's construction work, as I was asking in the beginning, massive construction work to, you know, divert the river on the Chinese side. Is it possible? What do you think? Do you think that is a plausible reason?
Well, I have tried to investigate the whole issue with the help of satellite imageries for quite some time. And my straight answer is it has nothing to do with anthropogenic causes, I would like to say. That the Chinese, the one dam is very about 400-500 kilometers upstream Jiangmu, and there are other dams also there. So these dams cannot bring so much debris and bring it down to the earth. Rather, the lakes, the artificial lakes which got formed after these earthquakes, series of earthquakes. So, one occurred in 2000 also.
Yeah. So Dr. Nayan Sharma, you are talking about the earthquake. You don't think that, you know, artificial lakes formed by the earthquake could be one of the reasons, not art excavation works that is going on? Nayan Sharma.
Well, there is a Taklamakan desert, which people, there has been a lot of news in the media that this Taklamakan desert in Xinjiang province requires a lot of water, and Chinese are already deficient in water. But from my analysis, I don't find any evidence to support that a big tunnel is built. It's not easy to make a huge tunnel and transport such amount of water. I still believe it is the earthquake which triggered those debris, and they have been responsible.
Right. Dr. Nayan Sharma there believes that it is the earthquake and it's not really an excavation related to diversion of the Brahmaputra or the Yarlung Tsangpo itself. I'll seek the opinion of my other panelists, but before that, Mr. Jayadev Ranade, you have heard the MP, Mr. Ninong Ering, also saying that New Delhi does not seem to be serious on this water issue. That is why it has not come up with a clear explanation. But, you know, there are no visible attempts by New Delhi to find out what's going on. No, I'm using the word no visible attempt. They might be doing something we may not know. But what do you think? Mr. Ranade.
Yeah, well, as I said, the turbidity to a part, I mean, I'm not a water expert, but I would attribute it in part to the construction activity that is going on. What they have done is they've accelerated the construction, and I'm sure that in the process there is a lot of dynamite work that is also going on in the Medak region. Incidentally, that's a strategically important sector for the railway and for the road. So I would expect that our authorities at the center are watching what is happening, and they probably have more information. But I also think that on grounds of the climate change, the adverse impact on the people, the central government should raise it with the Chinese and try and get some clarity
but Mr.
as to what is happening in that.
Do you rule out art excavation work, construction of tunnels to divert the river by the Chinese close to the Great Band? I mean, to feed water to its arid northern areas. Mr. Ranade?
There is a lot of speculation on that. The manner in which the Chinese are building dams along the Yarlung Tsangpo points to their intention of diverting the river to the north. Whether they are actually going to carry out huge dynamite or huge explosions at the point of the Great Bend in order to divert it, or whether they are going to build a series of dams and then divert it in that manner is not yet clear. But certainly, there is a lot of dynamiting going on because of the railway and road construction. There was a tunnel being built in Medoc also, and the diversion of the Yarlung Tsangpo. They're all together. Unfortunately, on the Yarlung Tsangpo, we don't have absolute clarity as to whether there is going to be that major explosion.
Professor Swaran Singh, why is everything in the realm of speculation? Professor Swaran Singh, why is everything in the realm of speculation, or rather, why should everything be in the realm of speculation?
Basweer, I was about to say that, we are living continuously in domain of speculation, and I think even expert like Professor Nayan Sharma broadly believe likelihood of earthquakes. Ranade is saying that the possibility of construction of railways, of dams. But you remember, your member of parliament from the region in November and now is saying there is some kind of lava-like soot, like a cement. And he has a serious problem with that kind of silt coming from those rivers.
Yes.
And there could not be a higher representative to raise issues than Member of Parliament.
And the local
and we understand from Prime Minister himself, he's made 30. Yes, so 30 visits by to underline the significance that New Delhi wants to attach to Northeast. Why can't our own agencies find out what this material is? And find out from where this could be potentially coming. I mean, there is a scientific evidence that is a possibility other than, speculations that we continue to make. So one side is pressing China for more information, using satellites and asking them to confirm what we have, our own information on the ground. But also scientific agencies to find out what this silt is actually. Is it lava? Is it some construction material that is flooding us? Is it a kind of rock which is, dynamites are creating that kind of a silt here? Because immediate problem for us is that the carrying capacity of rivers is going down. The flora, fauna and life in water is getting damaged. Flood is impacting the neighboring villages every year. It's a seasonal thing in November and then now. I mean, there has to be something far more, institutional approach to this kind of, rather than just political rhetoric. We speak every time on television. I think we need scientific institutions to investigate and find out what is it that is coming from Chinese side.
I think Nonigopal Mohanto, what Professor Swaran Singh is saying, we are an advanced country today, we are scientifically developed. Why can't our agencies find out as to what that material is? As Swaran has very rightly said, Professor Swaran Singh has said, I mean, it's not rocket science, we need to know what that material is.
Exactly. So that is very true. It's a profound failure on the part of our scientific community or on the part of policymakers that we haven't done anything to look into what are the main etiological aspects of those issues. But having said so...
No, but one more thing, Nonigopal Mohanto, if we know exactly what it is, what is the harm in telling the people? Why keep the people so anxious?
Yeah, but along with it, why China is so confidential. It is not only about India. If you look at even Southeast Asia, on the eve of, Mekong River, they have made eight mega dams. They are again constructing another 20 on the pipeline. But if you look at, again, with Southeast Asia, they do not share any data. They proposed one commission called Mekong River Commission, but China refused to be part of it. On the contrary, China has proposed a new mechanism called Lasang Mekong Cooperation. So in the sense that China refuses to be part of an institutional mechanism, and that is the problem. And it is not only with India, it is also with Nepal. Nepal is also having their sources from Tibet, and it is connected to Ganga. 57% source comes from Nepal. So my point is that it is not that simple. Well, we can have some, some scientific research what is causing this kind of situation in Arunachal.
Yeah.
But having said so, we need multilateral approach. It is not just a question about the riparian rights of India. It is about the lower riparian rights of Bangladesh. It is about Nepal.
Absolutely.
It is also about Southeast Asia.
Absolutely. Professor Arup Sharma, as Professor Suren Singh and Nanugopal Mohanty is saying, why do we not know so far what that material is if I also understand that Government of India need not tell everybody everything. That is also understood. But why keep an entire people anxious or in doubts? Why can't we say what material is that? That black material which is causing the turbidity of the river for almost 1 year now.
And few months back,
It's a matter of absolutely. It's a matter of serious concern.
That point actually I raised when in the last year when it happened, that some samples were brought to IIT Guwahati also, and we tested. And at that time, the speculation was that there can be some cementing material, but it was not there. But some other material were found. Turbidity was high.
It was in Brahmaputra.
It was declared unfit for human consumption.
It was in Brahmaputra.
It was declared unfit for human consumption.
That is true. And then, at that point itself, I was telling that in Tooting, suppose there is a station, our gazing station, within Indian side. Why we cannot put an effort to monitor the sediment concentration, sediment quality of that in that part? Then we can get a lot of idea about
Absolutely.
that. And in 29th September, there is a meeting of NDMA. I am planning to propose this one. I have already proposed these things.
Now there is a commitment, a member of the National Disaster Management Authority, a very senior professor at IIT Guwahati, Professor Arup Sharma. He is saying that he is raising this matter at the next meeting of the National Disaster Management Authority in New Delhi on the 29th of September. We hope something emerges and the Government of India takes this seriously. But Mr. Ninong Ering, in November last year, you wrote, Mr. Ninong Ering, you wrote to the Prime Minister expressing concern, and you have sought that a group of international experts be sent at India's initiative to the Chinese side to monitor as to what actually is going on. A team of neutral international experts. This was your suggestion. What response did you get, Mr. Ninong Ering?
There has been no response. Only the Indian scientists have said through, through the satellite pictures, they have shown that a landslide had occurred. I have also seen that satellite picture. Those were very small, dams which had occurred, which did not make any kind of, impact on the river. Because even though these dams were there, the water was overflowing through that, and then there was a normal course of water. And this time we are very lucky that the Siang or the Sangpo did not flood. Only just recently a Chinese instruction was given to the Indian government that yes, the Chinese area is being flooded and there could be a threat. But that was a very normal, course, and there was a normal flood. So, but it did not have. But the rains which did not come this time to the northeast is a very big, sigh of relief for us, because this is the reason why the Brahmaputra was not flooded. Even though it is flooded downstream, it was through all the other major rivers which flow into the Brahmaputra.
Okay. But hold on, Mr. Ninong Ering, I'll come back to you. Now, Dr. Nayan Sharma, for a change, the Chinese have recently issued a statement, that there has been massive rains in the Tibetan Himalayas, lot of water discharge in the Changpo, and they had issued a flood warning. That is also a rare. Could it be a reason, do you believe that that is one of the reasons why the Siang has actually been witnessing high tides? Or do you think it is China's rain seeding project that has gone horribly wrong? Or has it started at all? Nayan Sharma.
Well, it's very complex questions you have raised, but very interesting, very pertinent. I'll try to share my views. First, the Chinese dams, which are already built in Yarlung Sangpo, these are all hydropower dams. They do not have flood cushion, just like Ranganadi and Doyang. They don't have flood cushion. So as and when there is a heavy rainfall, the excess flow cannot be stored in those dams. They have to release. And Chinese have openly declared that they have to release. They are releasing this excess flow. Number one. The second point is the debris, which I myself, from my analysis, I found from satellite data of December 2017, as well as satellite imageries of February.
Right.
I could see these artificial dams are there, very much there, and these dams are gradually getting dislodged. So obviously,
artificial
that
dams
is one
mean
reason,
artificial
and
lakes.
a lot of water is being released from the dams, and at the same time, the excess flow from these glacier melting and gradual bursting of these small dams, they are definitely creating big waves near Pasighat. Here, I would like to again remind you that the drop from Pe, that is the beginning of the gorge, 500 kilometer gorge, up to the Pasighat is a stupendous 2 kilometer. So you can imagine such a big drop,
Yes.
huge flow. This time Chinese, they have said 9,000 cubic is the discharge. So it will have to create huge turbulent waves and also bring a lot of debris, as I told you, due to the...
Absolutely. Yes. Professor Swaran Singh, you wanted to make a point there. Yes, Swaran. You wanted to make a point there. Swaran?
Very quick. Yes, Basveer, very quickly, the cloud seeding project is a very ambitious project, has not taken off as of now. Even if it does, it will have greater impact on the flow of monsoons, etc., and will create floods, but of fresh water. So, you know, the silt is the problem that Member of Parliament is mentioning. The lava-like silt is the issue here, and that's not due to cloud seeding. And second, very quickly, I respect Noni Gopal. He's a very dear friend. But I don't think we should compare China's doings with other countries like Nepal and Southeast Asia. India is the largest neighbor China has. India is the largest economy, largest society next to them. So the way we negotiate with China will have to be completely different. I think we need to press them on some of the more information, regular interactions, but also need to do our homework in finding out what is it that is coming from China.
Absolutely. Mr. Ranade, you have heard the panelists. You know, the weaponization of water is, almost, becoming a reality. Do you have a different view? Water as a military weapon?
It can use it, but you know, these things are double-edged swords. Even if they try and divert the Brahmaputra, they will have to build a big reservoir and dams by which to divert it. And those become easy targets for the adversary also. So I think it's a double-edged weapon. As far as using water as a weapon, I would not put it past the Chinese. They have used trade as a weapon also.
Yeah.
They've used rare mineral exports as weapons also. As far as water is concerned, I would look at the manner in which they're carrying out large-scale development projects inside Tibet, which is leading to global warming and the retreat of the glaciers. In course of time,
right,
that will mean reduced water flows into India, which will affect the people residing in the Indo-Gangetic
Professor
Plain
Arup
and
Sharma,
Assam and other areas.
you know, Dr. Nayan Sharma has also talked about, huge artificial lakes. And we are now discussing the issue of water as a military weapon. Now, this, the control is with the Chinese, isn't it? 11 big rivers flowing out of China from a great height, and the Chinese have full control on the rivers, and the lower riparians have just no control. That is one. And the artificial lakes which have generated for whatever reasons, plus the big dams that the Chinese are constructing, 25 to 30 dams have already been sanctioned. Couple of dams, including the Jangmo, have already been built. So these are huge weapons at the hands of the Chinese for use if they like. I'll come to the same question to Swaran Singh as well a little later. Yes, Professor Sharma.
Okay. So far, I'd just like to express one point here about the rainfall this time. that I was just looking into the precipitation from the Global Precipitation Measurement Project of NASA, and then I found that on 25th, 26th, 27th, 29th, the precipitation was there in Tibetan side.
Okay.
And this was moving from west to east. So that way this actually increases the flow volume because the direction of flow and the precipitation movement, the storm movement match. Then this was happening, I have the images also there, and that way this increases the flow this time, and then that kind of high flow we observed before also actually in 2005 also.
Absolutely.
It was there. Now coming to the dam that you were asking, yes, there are 4 or 5 dams there, and in the tributaries of Yarlang Jangbu also there are some dams. Now these dams are 500 kilometer away from our 400 to 500 kilometer away from. Now if
at a height of 3,500 feet.
3,500. This is a plateau, so this is at an elevation like that. And now if this dam fails, then what will happen, to what extent the water will come? That we can always study through our dam break analysis. So if we do the dam break analysis, depending on the terrain, how much the water will come. In fact, the dam break analysis started with that particular point.
So it can, if the dam breaks from that height, it can cause. Can it cause serious damage or not?
That is what. Suppose we were studying some of the dam break analysis.
What is the conclusion?
Yeah, up to 100 kilometer or so, when the water comes, the wave speed get dissipated. But after that, it will be coming through deep gorge, as already said by Professor Nayan Sharma, that the steepness of that gorge is very high, 1:60 kind of things. And so the volume of water will continue for a long time. That volume of water will continue for a few days, but then how much damage will be there, what will be the level, we can do that study actually.
But the fact that there can be damage you cannot rule that out, isn't it?
That we do not. We do not rule out.
So
but definitely,
that a dam like the Jangbu is 3,500 feet elevation, whereas we are talking about the lower Subansiri, which is just 150 feet.
No. This is a different point, because this is at a higher elevation. Suppose like this, and this is at this one. But the flow, when it breaches, it is also moving through a flat area here.
Okay.
So it is not that from there, this elevation is not making that point.
We'll not go into that. We'll not go into that.
Yes.
But yes, Nani Gopal.
I just like to raise one point. You look at, it needs to be corrected if I'm wrong. But the point is that at the institutional level, what is the mechanism that government of India or China we have developed? Nothing. We have 2006 expert level, meeting with each other. But beyond that point, bilaterally, how far have we succeeded in taking this issue? Notwithstanding what Professor Singh says, that we are a very economic giant. But look at the situation. This issue cannot be seen in isolation. So if India is emerging as a regional economic power or global economic power, but China has linked it with the issue of Act East policy. In India's growing assertiveness in Southeast Asia with Act East policy, or even look at the security issues. That's why I have raised it. China has supported Pakistan against UN sanctions. Then Asad Masark issue, nuclear supply group. These are some of the issues that China is extremely skeptical about India's position. So my point is that institutionally we have not succeeded in convincing China in terms of having some kind of cooperation with India. So at this juncture, but remember, it is not just we are having complaints against China, Bangladesh is also having complaints against India. So
Professor Swaran Singh, Nani Gopal Mohanto is basically saying that we have failed institutionally to convince the Chinese to accept, at least come round to some of our concerns, to address our concerns.
Going beyond expert level meetings.
Institutionally. Now, you keep meeting the Chinese academia and the Chinese think tanks very, very frequently. You write in the Chinese newspapers as well, Professor Swaran Singh. What is the sense that you get? Why are the Chinese so reluctant to, at least address some of these concerns on the Indian side?
I think the first important thing to underline is that Chinese are not as much susceptible to international law, international conventions and international norms. So that's a big limitation for all countries that deal with China. So we have to not just do bilateral efforts. I agree with Nani Gopal. We have to also work at the multilateral level to press China to accept and comply to several of these international norms and agreements and conventions. Quick point I want to make on the water weapon issue. I think we very often imagine water enormously flooding and destroying Northeast is the only method the Chinese would use water. They could also, in the sense of depriving India, for example, by diverting water gradually or by a mega project, but more important, by flooding us during June and September every year. Not in a major way, but in a minor way. Let's say dozens of villages are washed off, but what is happening repeatedly from November onwards is the quality of water. The quality of water makes it not usable. Flora, fauna, and life in water, fishery in water is getting impacted. That's also a weapon. I mean, it's an incremental piecemeal use of, which is really damaging India's northeast.
But this is,
it's not only that it has to be a big bang kind of a thing, destruction.
This is quite a dangerous prospect. If the Pakistanis are using the mercenaries to launch a proxy war on India, the Chinese could use water to launch a proxy war on India, Swaran Singh.
They have been doing it.
Yes, it's a piecemeal use, is what I'm underlining. So let's not imagine dam bursting or Chinese intentionally doing something to enormously flood entire northeast. It's going to be incremental also. Like, you know, for last 6 months we are knowing these silt coming, like lava-like things coming, which are making water not usable. That's also damaging us, damaging our economy in the region. So I think we really need to hold Chinese responsible, but for that we first need to collect our own data, do scientific research, collect satellite data, and then ask them questions.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, I will go for a quick break, but before that, very, very quickly, Mr. Jayadev Ranade, coming to Sino-Indian bilateral dialogue, do you think water should be the key focus area now? I have asked this question to other panelists already. Mr. Ranade.
Yes, I think water should be one of the key focus areas. There are other issues also, but water should certainly be one of them, and it should be raised at the highest levels till we get some clarity from the Chinese. There is no harm in them telling us what their plans are. We understand their needs for water. Most countries have it. But then the next step could be our suggesting that we can work together to resolve the problems, whereby, in a manner, we are also not impacted adversely.
Absolutely. So we have to look into all this issue. I'll go for a short break now, but stay on, don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Professor Nayan Sharma, you had been talking about the artificial lakes. We all know about the massive dams that the Chinese have or on the anvil. Now, we have been asking this question to everybody. I need to take your views as well. Can the Chinese use it conveniently in times of need to use it as a military tool against India? Nayan Sharma.
Well, you are asking a very interesting stage called hydropolitics. Well,
yes, hydropolitics.
Hydropolitics is a serious issue here, and my straight answer is that there is no agreement, no water sharing or agreement between India, China, or even Bangladesh. So obviously, I don't think they can make it a weapon. Had they used it as a weapon, they would have alerted the Indian side as per bilateral agreement for sharing of hydrological data. So again, at this point, we don't have evidence. There may be some thinking, I can't say on that, but there is no evidence right now.
No, Professor Swaran Singh, Nayan Sharma is quite optimistic. He has a lot of faith on the Chinese side, witnessing, informing the Indian side. Of course, I mean, he may have valid reasons for that. He is, of course, basing his on scientific studies. What do you think, Professor Swaran Singh?
I think Professor Nayan Sharma, as he just said earlier, has worked with Chinese colleagues. So I understand his confidence is flowing from there. But at national level, we need commitment from much higher levels in China. In terms of, they had a, for example, very famous Wuhan meeting in April. But water sharing was not quite central to the meeting. There was no joint statement, of course. So I think we need some kind of sense that Chinese are serious in engaging India. And as Noni said earlier, last year they were giving data to Bangladesh but refusing to give us data. They're refurnishing the kind of measuring instruments, etc. So they do not they do not trust in China in that sense. So I think it's a matter of perception which is important, that we should first begin to see that China is engaging.
That is important.
And then use.
Yeah. Now, Mr. Ranade, do we have enough information, or do we have the appropriate technology to get the information ourselves? What is your assessment?
Well, I think technology-wise, the world has made a lot of rapid advances, and we have satellite technology available. Other countries also have it, sophisticated satellites which they would be willing to share. So I don't think that should be much of a problem. The essential problem is China's will to really cooperate.
No. Let me go to Mr. Ninong Ering. Mr. Ninong Ering, as an MP from the state of Arunachal Pradesh, now what do you expect from the government of India? Because you know the ground situation, it's your people who are suffering, your people who are a worried lot today. What is your expectation from the government of India?
See, I'm asking the government of India that they have to compensate for all the flood that has occurred, or all the damage that has occurred in Assam and in Arunachal, because especially in Arunachal, there are 2-3 villages which have been completely eroded. Especially now the place where I was just gone, that is in Sikabaman area, Jampani area it is called. It is just bordering Assam, Jonai. So there, the effect has been seen. So if it is affecting there, even in a low scale of water, it could affect very much downstream in, say, Koboghat, 3 Mile Ghat, or even Dibrugarh also. So this is what I'm saying. I'm asking the government, they must give enough compensation for all the lives that have been lost, all the property that has been lost, all the cattle that has been lost, the disturbance they've given to the aquatic life, and they can, all your reports have gone, all your reporters have come, all the media has covered it.
Yeah, absolutely. now, when we talk about water as a military weapon, it is first people who are going to be affected are the people in Arunachal Pradesh. That is your state, isn't it?
Yes. This is a weapon of mass destruction. Once they release those dams at a time, and you can expect what will happen in the downstream. So in fact, the construction of the dam by the Chinese in Tibet was very much objectionable, but because, like I said, we don't have a water treaty, that is the reason why we could not say anything about it. But the government of India must pressurize, because we are having a lot of talks, but they always have that, we have the Doklam issue, we have that incursion in Basing, we have the incursion in Kibito or in Chaglaham, we have the incursion in in some parts of Gailing. So all these things have to be taken into consideration, that we want friendship, we want that that trade relations must be there. But if this is the situation that it is advantage China, then I think the government of India also should not just bow down before them. We are a nation, a developing nation. We have to fight with them.
Correct. Now, Professor Sharma, what is the road ahead? Because we'd like to know, how do we proceed from here? This is the situation, we have a problem in hand. How do you go forward?
Yeah, what I would like to mention 2 points here. One is that as a whole, Brahmaputra as an entire basin, we can make a basin management plan, and you can see, irrespective of the countries, how all the countries involved into it, that is the China, Bangladesh, Bhutan, or India, what plan or what management practice can give benefit to all the countries. basin level benefit. And with those benefit, can we, first we need to work on that, or I mean, there is cooperation we'll have to have, and accordingly, already we are trying to build some cooperation,
yes,
and we are achieving that. And now we need to make the plan that these are the benefit. If we do this, technologically, if we do this, then socially, if we do this kind of thing, this will be the beneficial thing. And then based on this, there should be political negotiation,
yes,
what we can, I mean, finally, whether we can make it. Because first, to make a political negotiation, we need to know that whether there is a win-win situation for all. So that kind of things we need to do. Second point, that as it is coming that weapon kind of thing, that intentional breaching of the dam at this point, I don't think that China will do that, because the whatever water will come, immediate damage will be there in the China.
Within the Chinese territory.
Within the Chinese territory. So intentional breaching, that we should not be worried.
So intentional breach, not a cause for rain. What do you think?
That
What is the road ahead?
Intentional
Well,
breaching.
Wasbi, you know, there is a doctrine called Harman Doctrine, you know, which was developed in the context of USA and Mexico. That means, you know, that states or the nation states have, you know, undisputed, you know, control over the natural resources and water resources. But that doctrine is now said to be a very notorious doctrine, no longer follows it, nobody follows it. So the question is what my colleagues have said, that win-win situation. Now we have to somehow convince China at various levels, at the bilateral level, also at the multilateral level. It's not that we are confronting each other. There are many platforms where India and China is working together. One of them being the SCO, you know, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, BCIM is there. Then also what I would like to propose along with Professor Sharma is the, you know, what I would like to say BCI Himalaya Basin Cooperation. Yeah. That is Bangladesh, China, India and Himalayan Basin Cooperation. So we can go into sector wise. These are the areas, then we can stay forward. You know, larger issues of security, larger issues of, you know, mutual confrontation can come later on. But issue-wise, there are certain sectoral issues which we can address.
Right.
That's what I would like to focus, rather than on a macro basis.
Absolutely.
You cannot go at the macro level,
no,
but sector-wise you can go.
Professor, Mr. Ranade, that brings me to the question. You know, can we have something like a, I mean, Professor Sharma and other panelists are talking about basin management, Brahmaputra basin management or something like that, but can we have a water regulatory authority, you know, among the lower riparian states? India, Bangladesh and so on. Water regulatory authority, some mechanism where we can jointly talk about regulating the water. Mr. Ranade.
Well, certainly they should make common cause. Both need to exert pressure on the upper riparian, which is China. But here I must caution that China hasn't shown any sensitivity to lower riparians if we look at the example provided by the Mekong River and the Mekong River Commission countries. So here Bangladesh and India should of course raise it with China independently and together, and also the other lower riparians. I mean, after all, including countries like Pakistan, they're also going to be affected.
Absolutely.
So Myanmar is going to be affected. I think all these countries need to take it up and exert pressure on China to look at it in a collaborative manner.
Now, Professor Swaran Singh, what should be India's response at this stage? Professor Swaran Singh, what should be India's response?
I think response would depend on looking at what the problem is at our hand. Number one, I am reading reports that from Eastern Sheong district till about Dibrugarh, there are alerts issued by local administration. So there are floods.
Right.
That's number one issue to respond to. Second issue is one of the quality of water. I am repeatedly underlining incremental damaging of water bodies through bad quality of water, which is not usable. And I think these are two immediate problems that need to be addressed. For that, we have to use satellite data, we have to do scientific research on what is happening here, and take that to Chinese and ask them questions as to what is this, can they explain it, why it is happening, and what is that true or false. Second, of course, we have to also think of long-term water management with Chinese. We have a fantastic Indus Water Treaty, for example, in the same region, neighbor. We can have a similar arrangement potentially, perhaps, but I think more important also is to level push the Chinese as they emerge as a great power to follow norms and rules regulations of upper and lower riparian states.
Very true.
It is expected of them, especially as they become kind of a big power and whole world is scrutinizing their actions. have to highlight at multilateral level that this is an important source and we need to understand how to share it. And we should follow international law of upper riparian states in that sense, but that's long term.
Absolutely.
Immediately I'm saying two issues, incremental gradual flooding and quality of water are two things that we need to address.
Address floods and address the issue of relating to water quality. That is what Swaran Singh has been saying. Now, Dr. Nayan Sharma, same question to you. What should be India's response? And how can we use our surveillance technology and ascertain what is actually going on the other side?
Well, excellent question you have asked. I was interested to share with you. See, right now there is a big lacuna, there is a big lacking on the Indian preparedness for disaster management. Number one, we should have a early warning system, and this early warning system need to be state of the art, and we should use the multi-satellite GPM satellite data, which is freely available. And then we should use, along with digital elevation models with very high resolution. And then we can use hydrological models. And then we can definitely predict what will be the discharge going to come well in advance, in real time or maybe in advance. So recently in Tehri Dam, I know they have installed a early warning system, but they have not used this satellite. And this is number one. Second point I'd like to put here, that especially near Pasighat and upstream, there is an urgent need to go for techniques which can slow down, which can reduce the velocities of the incoming flows. And then these waves will not appear. And in this regard, my work also on unstructured block ramps can be referred.
Very interesting, isn't it? That suggestion that in Pasighat area, some structures should be made to reduce the velocity of incoming water as and when.
Yes, because in that portion the slope is very steep, 1:60 as I say. So when the flow comes with that high steep region.
So we should have a mechanism to reduce the flow.
There can be some mechanisms are there, so that can be put.
I just like ask a counter question.
Okay.
Could dam be a kind of answer? Because the domestic use of water that flows through your state, could that be an answer to China that also here if you divert or you have such kind of plan, it will greatly economically offend our, I mean, you know, it will negotiate our problems. So could construction of dams be an answer?
On the Indian side, you mean?
Yeah, on the Indian side, if we can have a storage dam, flood cushioning dam, so it will have to be multi-purpose.
At the end of the day, it has to be a multi-purpose dam.
Multi-purpose dam,
That
where it will be irrigation benefit,
say.
flood cushioning, and everything is there. Then it will have the potential to, I mean, reduce the flood. So that kind of things are necessary. Then we can reduce the flood.
Now, slightly different question. Mr. Ninongering, what kind of a role do you think, has the state government has, in this case, the government of Arunachal Pradesh, for example. We also have a government of Assam also might have a role. So, can you answer this question? What do you think is the role of the state government in this kind of a situation?
Yeah, because it's an international issue, the state government cannot give much of its, its mindset cannot be projected. They are reflecting. Our Honorable Chief Minister, Mr. Pema Khandu, has already had talks with the Prime Minister. He has apprised them of that. He has apprised the Home Minister. He has asked what kind of package must be given to the people of Arunachal Pradesh and the effects that is in the later effects downstream into Assam.
Yeah.
So both the Chief Ministers, Mr. Sarvanand Sonal or Mr. Pema Khandu, must pressurize on that. Not only them, but the northeastern states and especially even Bangladesh, because this is going to affect Bangladesh too. The aquatic life has been completely destroyed. But the river has to come back to its own course, and we have to request China, or in fact not request, but we have to demand that the clean water that once upon a time was there, it should again come. Now you can see the sea-like waves in Siang. It is very dangerous, and no boat can venture into that river now. So this has to be taken into consideration.
Now, Professor Swaran Singh, that is exactly what you have been saying, the quality of water. The MP, they are talking about, the water quality as well. What kind of water, the clean water?
I think I just heard Pan say about building dams as a water management instrument. Already for about a decade plus, we are trying in Northeast to build small river harnessing water dams, which is a useful way of doing it. But what happens, and I heard one panelist saying multi-purpose projects, invariably all dams end up to be source of producing power, producing electricity. That becomes the main focus. In fact, you know, floods in Kerala are partly reason because focus is very limited and they keep collecting water over a period of time, not sure of the monsoon coming. So I think focus has to be on dams becoming source of flood management. And I think that very often gets neglected. It is why dams become not really useless, but actually potential threat to certain regions. So it has to be a multi-purpose project. Is part of it. Electricity generation is part of it, but also flood management. And if we keep the focus on flood management, and I'm sure that in that case, dams would be useful source of controlling floods in Northeast.
Absolutely.
Chinese misbehave on and off.
Right. I'm running absolutely short of time. Dr. Nayan Sharma, in the end, where do we in the lower riparian states stand today? Is it a cause for worry? Dr. Nayan Sharma.
Well, I think it's very much worrisome, very much worrisome. And in this regard, simply sharing of hydrological data is not enough. We must have a good sort of understanding with Chinese, maybe a sort of treaty, so that there can be, just like Satluj, they should be able to allow a joint China-India team of experts trying to figure out how to minimize the devastation.
Absolutely.
Because I still feel with increasing impact of climate change and erratic behavior of cloudburst events in Northeast, there is a very serious threat on massive disaster, the way Kerala have experienced. So my word is simply in this, my last point is like government has constituted Brahmaputra Study Center, but simply considering doesn't make, they have to go.
Absolutely. Nanugopal Mohanto, what are your last words?
My last point is that, we cannot expect China to go for a kind of mega treaty. This is henceforth, we are these do's and don'ts. I do not believe that China, believes in this kind of mega treaty. They won't. So point is to go for strategic cooperation, all sectoral wise, what we have been talking about. Rather than going for a mega project or kind of agreement, let us go issue wise. That's what we need to approach with China. China also cannot afford to neglect India for a long time. So I believe Bangladesh, China, India, Nepal and the Southeast Asian countries should come together to put pressure, that is at the multilateral level, and bilateral level we need to also go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Dr. Arup Sharma, what do you think? Last words.
We have seen that already disasters are coming up, increasing, and our climate change study on the entire basin has shown that we will be having more high-intensity rainfall and longer dry spell. So this will increase both flood and drought. So we'll have to be prepared for that, and we'll have to make our arrangements so that we can face that situation.
Absolutely.
That is what we should do.
Okay. Professor Swaran Singh, what are your concluding remarks?
I hope that other national channels pick up this story from your channel and follow it up. And likewise, national leadership puts a certain priority to this issue while engaging Chinese, which we are now doing on a regular basis. Apparently, the mood is changing between China and India's leaders, that the bonhomie seem to be growing, and I think we need to prioritize the areas that we want to highlight, and this should be one of the areas that we need to pursue with the Chinese at the highest level.
Absolutely. Whether other channels pick up or not, I really don't know. But we in Northeast Live are definitely going to highlight this issue of water, because that is extremely integral and a cause of concern to everyone in the Northeast. Mr. Ninong Iring, bilateral issue, do you think if we bring it up in the agenda, do you think things are going to help if we bring water high up in the agenda between India and China? I'm running short of time. Very quickly, Mr. Ninong Iring.
This should be the first priority, I would say, because it is not only the aquatic life, not only the flow of the river, but it is affecting the people downstream of Tibet. that is Arunachal Pradesh, Assam or even Bangladesh. So this has to be taken into priority, and even though we don't have an international treaty, we have to, compel the Chinese government to respond to us.
Absolutely, you have to compel the Chinese government to respond to us. India has a proactive role to play. That is what we are all hoping for. Lastly, Mr. Jaidev Ranade, are you a worried man? What should New Delhi do?
Well, I think New Delhi should raise it. Our Prime Minister is very sensitive to issues of climate change, to pollution, etc. This is certainly something that will impact adversely on the very densely populated Indo-Gangetic belt, on the very densely populated Assam, Arunachal, that region, where so many people are dependent on the rivers and on water supply for production of their grain, their rice, etc. So I think these are very important issues which have to be raised, issues that concern the livelihood and sustenance of crores and crores of people.
Absolutely. So this has been a very, very engaging discussion, and we cannot take it lightly. The water issue, a lot of things are dependent on water. As Swaran Singh and other panelists who said, it's the quality of water, it's the flood, whether the Chinese can use the water as a military weapon, whether those dams can damage us ecologically if there's a deliberate burst, and so on and so forth. There are various dimensions, but at the end of the day, the general call is for the Indian government to act, and act fast, and be able to convince the Chinese to part with information and gather information on our own as well, so that we can be prepared to deal with any kind of a calamity or adversity arising out of water. On that note, I thank all my panelists for engaging and participating in this extremely engaging debate. On this note, I'd end this edition of Northeast Tonight. Thank you, goodbye, and good night.